Hey, what up? All right, so I am building a newsletter business, and I'm going to give you weekly updates, even if it shits the bed. Let me get into it. I'm going to share my screen with you and start telling you what I did in this first week. But the first step is you're going to need a list of emails. I did a course. It's free. It's on YouTube. It's called Lead Lord. In that course, I show people how to build a list and monetize it. So I'm not going to go over all that because then that is quite literally its own course. But I'll give you the cliff notes of how I built my list. What I did is I did something called a free plus shipping model. So what I did was I found something that is considered valuable to other people or other people have value for it, but it's cheap to me, and then I give it away for free. So for example, I have an item that's cost me like $3. I give it away for free, but the shipping and handling is $9.95. I think you're picking up what I'm putting down here. The goal there is not to get rich, right? Get a $6 profit, great. But the goal is not to get rich. The goal is to get leads to pay for themselves and then use that extra money to reinvest in things like building a newsletter. So let's get cracking. I first started with the format. Which kind of newsletter format did I want to use? I looked at several of them. I landed on this. This is Too Long, or TLDR. It's an AI newsletter. The reason I landed on it is because it's so simple. What you see is categories and three articles, categories, 3 articles, category, 3 articles, and so on and so forth. So it was a really simple layout compared to something like, let me look over here, something like this, the Newsette. I mean, there's a lot going on here. I didn't want to do all that. So I went to this and decided to use it. So I like the format, but before I settled on that, I was like, okay, I'm digging this format. It's real simple, but are these cats making money? Did a quick lookup on them, and it looks like they are doing anywhere from 5 million to 10 million in annual revenue. So, okay, cool. I like the format, and obviously it works because these cats are making money. The next thing I did was research on my demographic. And so building my list gave me a great idea of who my demographic was. And so I knew what to sell them to build the list. But as far as content goes, I don't know what they like. So my demographic's over 55. They're closer to the age of like 65 or so, but they're over 55. And I didn't know what they were consuming digitally. So I went to ChatGPT and Gemini to do something called deep research. So if you look at my screen here, obviously you're looking at my screen, but down here's deep research. I have this expensive version of ChatGPT. I did the deep research using, I think it was O3 Mini, or I did my research starting with Pro, but now it's not doing it. Anyways, did deep research with ChatGPT, and then also in Gemini, I have a paid version of Gemini. That's Google's AI. They also have a deep research. What deep research is imagine doing like 5 hours of research in less than 10 minutes or 5 minutes. So you give it a topic, it will crawl all the sources that it has access to on the internet, and then it'll give you its feedback based on those sources. So long story short, I wanted to know what my demographic was consuming in digital media. And I did it on ChatGPT, and I did it on Gemini. And what I found was that both were, Gemini and ChatGPT came back and basically said, hey, they're into health, finance, news, entertainment, and technology. Both the research things I did came back with those 5 categories. So I was like, okay, dope. I'm going to go ahead and do those 5 categories. So that's how I picked those. So I have my 5 categories. The next step was to then start to get together some content. And what the hell do I know? This is my first time doing this. I don't know what content's going to resonate with them. I don't know what they figure out. I don't know what's popular, what's popping, what's not. So I did something. I'm going to give you a principle that I've leveraged that has helped me significantly as an entrepreneur. I leverage what is already working. That sounds like a very simple thing, and yeah, everybody should do it, but they don't. And it has been probably one of the biggest skill sets, the biggest principles that's helped me do decently here in this entrepreneurial world. Again, I leverage what already works. Here's an example. Apple made the smartphone. What did their competition do? Make advanced flip phones? No. The competition got on board and started making smartphones because smartphones were working. That is a broad example of kind of what I do. So let me get back to the lecture at hand. One of the categories is news. I don't know what's popping from news and all that stuff. So I went to Reddit. I figure out, okay, what's top? what's popping this week. And I just went through it. Like, okay, this is what's happening this week. Thinking of my demographic, knowing my demographic, which one of these stories that already got a ton of upvotes would they like? So I'm not just pulling random stories that I saw on some random website. I'm pulling stories that people have already reacted to, that people have already liked. And I'm going to pull the stories that I think my demographic would be most interested in. So once I picked out my news stories, the next thing was to summarize them. So for example, like in TLDR, let me show you. They have a story, then they give you a quick summary. So I need to do something like that, but I'm not going to read all these stories and just do a quick summary. That's too much. So what I did was I found my story that was popping. I go there, I take the link, just copy it. I created a chat GPT that I gave instructions, and I won't bore you with all the details I did. Oh, something to know though, I created it as I'm recording this video. You can create GPTs, right? This is a whole other course, but I'll just be brief. You can create GPTs, but I don't right now. As I do this, I do projects because I find that I create a GPT basically in my projects because I can use more of an advanced model. That's a whole other thing, but just take that for what it's worth for you guys who are familiar with ChatGPT. But I built a project, essentially a GPT, and told it how I wanted it to act. I won't bore you with the details. If you want them, let me know. But I basically said, hey, I'm going to plug in stories here. I want you to summarize them in no more than 2 to 3 sentences. I want it written at the 8th grade level. I want it very conversational and informal. I'm bipartisan. I think bipartisan means you're not left or right, but I want to make sure that I'm not leaning towards any direction with the story. I'm just presenting it, and I'm presenting it concisely. So then I do this, right? And I plug that in, and then let's see what it does. And then what it does is that it gives me 3 versions of the story. It'll give me 3 different headlines, and it'll give me 3 different summaries. And I just kind of mix and match or just pick one of these that I like. I got the headline, I got the summary, boom, that was my content for the newsletter. And so all the articles I picked, I just plugged in here, got the headline, got the summary. That way I don't have to read all this stuff. And the summaries were accurate and concise, and I was pleased with it. And then I mapped out my newsletter. And so I decided to open my newsletter. TLDR goes straight into the content, right? They go straight into the summaries. I'm opening with a quick story. Where did I get this story? I got the story from Reddit. It's a story that already worked. And I'm taking it and making my own version of that story. And then that story leads into the purpose of this newsletter, because this is a brand new newsletter. They don't know what they're getting from me. They don't know what's going on. So I used a story that's already worked, a story that I got from Reddit, modified it, and had it lead into the purpose of this newsletter. Again, leveraging something that already worked. And then I just mapped out the newsletter. I had the article, and then the headline, the summary. I did that for every single one. Boom, mapped it out, mapped it all out. That way, all I had to do now is figure out what platform I wanted to use and then plug all this in there. All right, so then for the newsletter, I wanted to make sure I was using the platform that would best serve my purpose. So if I'm looking to build a business and scale it, I wanted to start off with a newsletter platform that would allow me to do that. And from what I understood, the 2 best options were going to be Substack or Beehive. I didn't know which one to pick, so I basically I went here, again, did deep research with ChatGPT, did the same thing with Gemini, asked it the questions, basically which one, I told it to act like a expert on the differences between Substack and Beehive, told it what I wanted, what my intentions were, and then it came down here basically saying, hey, given your goals of advanced segmentation, user behavior-based campaigns, and diverse monetization strategies, Beehive is the platform. Gemini echoed that sentiment, so then I went ahead and decided to move forward with Beehive. Signing up for Beehive was pretty straightforward, connecting your domain and all that. They make it pretty easy. I ran into a couple of challenges though, and when I ran into the challenges, what did I do? I created a GPT that was a Beehive launch expert. And then any questions I had, instead of calling, hitting up their customer service and waiting for an answer and stuff, I just asked this expert ChatGPT to, answer my questions, and it did. And boom, I had everything set up. It was pretty simple. And then once I had everything set up, I already had my layouts. Then all I had to do was go post my very first newsletter. And so that's it. It's pretty straightforward, but there's a few things that I wish I would have known prior to starting, which I'll tell you now. Here are a few things that I wish I would have known prior to starting. So one is when you're uploading your list or connecting Beehive to your URL or your domain, do it well in advance before posting. So if you want to go ahead and launch your newsletter tomorrow, you need to start this process like a week ago, just to give yourself plenty of room. What I mean by that is importing your lists may take more time than you think, and then definitely connecting your URL and your domain to it may take more time. It's not hard to do. It's just you might go through a longer approval process depending on what's happening. So give yourself plenty of time with connecting your subscribers and connecting to your domain before you actually plan to launch your first newsletter. That's one. Number two is this. They have this over here in design. There's this newsletter builder. All right, so if you ever work with WordPress, Elementor, those types of things, there's like drag and drop, and you could edit the size of the font throughout the whole web page that you're building or the landing page that you're building. You kind of edit in chunks, no problem. That's not how it works here. You kind of set the overall tone of how your newsletter will be here in the, let me back for you, here in the design newsletter builder. You tell it here that, hey, all my H1s are going to be this size. Anytime I hyperlink something, I want it this color. You set all that here. You don't need to go through and do all these things, but when you do these things here, they carry over to your post. So you don't edit the size of your font in your actual post. You come here and you say, you know what? I want my font to be 22. I'm using this big ass font because my demographic's old and they need big letters and stuff. And so anyways, but you do all the editing over here in the design newsletter builder, and then that carries over to your post. That might seem intuitive to some of you guys. It wasn't to me. I was trying to edit the size and all that stuff in the actual post. Doesn't work that way. Also, like I told you earlier, I have five categories that I'm trying to track. I have 5 categories, and as time goes on, I start to see user behavior. If somebody's clicking on health and finance, I want to send them more health and finance and less of the technology stuff and so on and so forth. So as this goes on, I want to see what people are clicking and I want to segment them. And again, I have 5 categories. But if you see here, this thing only has 3 tags. Health, news, you can only put 3 tags in here. So if it had 5 tags, I could, like, for each category I have, I could just tag it and I would know, hey, somebody who clicked in this category gets the health tag. If somebody clicked in this category, they get the news tag. But I had 5 categories. So what I had to do was, let's see if I can find my post. I went to, let's go here, start writing. Ignore me. I'm going to find it. Let's go to my post here. And let me go to the edit. If you go to my post, again, remember I told you, like, you see how it looks all small here, but if I preview it, it's all big. That's because of what we did in that part I showed you prior to this, the whole newsletter builder, newsletter designer thing. But anyways, another thing here is you see this. What I did then, since I can't tag, I have 5 categories, but only 3 tags. What I did, let's see if it lets me, is I just put a UTM on there, and you could have ChatGPT automatically do this, but I took the link, I told it to add a UTM parameter, and at the end of it, I put health. So now anybody who clicks on these, they're going to be tagged with health. Anybody who clicks on these, they'll be tagged with news. Anybody who clicks on these, they'll be tagged with money. Same thing for entertainment, same thing for the damn technology. And what that will do is, as time goes on, I can use Beehive's analytics to see who's clicking on technology, who's clicking on health, what's going on. Then I can start segmenting that way. So those are a few things that I wish I would have known prior to doing Beehive. It would have made this process a little faster. And here's the thing. In the long run, this whole business may shit the bed, or it may make millions. Either way, I don't care. It doesn't matter. I'm going to learn something regardless. And that sounds cliche, but it's a win. I am sick, like quite literally feeling sick. I had this idea 3 days ago. I launched this newsletter and did this video in 3 days. I was a wantrepreneur back in the day. 10 years ago, I would have talked about this for 3 months. Then I would have done everything. I would have had my website, my logo, studied courses, watched these YouTubes, got another course. I would have done everything but actually post and send out the newsletter. So the fact that I'm just doing is a win for me. And then regardless, I'm going to learn something. I don't even know why I'm telling you that. I'll catch you in week 2. Peace.